everyone listening. I'm here with Rob Kabus.
Kabus.
That's it right. Kabus. And then Dataxet is how I pronounce Dataxet. Is that correct?
We say Dataxet, but
Dataxet. Okay. Yeah. So very excited to have you. Obviously, you're based in Thailand and I am based in Melbourne. So yeah, we're going to have a bit of a chat about the exciting world of AI and experimentation. And I think I'm really keen to pick your brain, especially Rob, because I know, or I'm sure that Dataxet leverages a lot of AI. But I'm interested in the AI experimentation, I suppose. So I guess from the very first step, what ways would your organization be experimenting with AI on a sort of organizational level, sort of various different things and deep dives your team are going down?
Yeah, on an organizational level, I think the thing, and experimentation, I don't know how you feel like is an interesting word even about AI, because I feel like it's things we're doing. Like there's a belief
I was going to
that,
say, yes, there's sort of two experimentations. There's what you go and tinker with on the side, but then also the AI products that we're produced have come out of experimentation. So
So so on one hand, if you look at like Gen AI search, the geo stuff, I feel like that's not so much experimentation, but something we're doing, right? Because it's obviously yielding a rich world of insight and is an important part to incorporate in the mix. But if I think about, I guess even this, like to some degree, but we've very much taken a full process approach to looking at AI in our business. So mapping out the entire journey from selling to onboarding to the initial stages of data cleansing, gathering, identification, through the customization of how our platform comes to life and the visualizations, and even all the way through into AI's contribution into the insight, reporting, consultation, that kind of work. So we're looking at it from beginning to end, trying to but in a connected way over time, because each of those pieces are different. But when you kind of look at it that way, you see that there's a connection between even the original sales process and the problems you may have identified or that the clients identified, all the way through the ultimate insights you deliver. All of that, if you can actually optimize the way you're getting people onboarded, what their roles are, how they use it, or how we use it, or how we actually structure the data, that actually feels like it's yielding a lot of like interesting possibilities. So, if I had to say where we are in that journey, it's probably like the first third, of it.
Okay.
We might be 20%, maybe 25% into it actually.
Well, it's very ambitious, obviously, to take the whole workflow into account. And do you have to use sort of different tools and different solutions for each of these different stages, or are you able to kind of find a bit more of a holistic platform or service that you can leverage?
Yeah, there are some different things, and that's like one of the challenges, because when you're first doing it, right, you're basically trying to be least disruptive and most additive as you can, but that's probably the siloed part of it, is how you're looking at it. But we are looking at some like a ChatGPT or type of tool as something that actually will provide a pretty good foundation for it. But obviously where we're coming from is that we've always been a business that's used ML to AI proprietary over time. So there's integration of that.
Yes, we have the same challenge, I guess. When you build a pipeline, a bespoke pipeline, it can produce some really amazing results, but then you have to integrate it into your current software architecture. So that's definitely been a challenge. From a personal level as well, I guess a personal professional level related to your work, have you done any of your own sort of tinkering? I'm not talking about AI photos, you've turned your family photos into movies, not that kind of tinkering.
You're not talking about that? Okay. Because that was the first thing that pops to mind is
you do?
And I'll no, not photos. For that, but the first thing I thought of was because I've been trying to teach myself guitar for like the last few years.
Okay, no, that's interesting.
And I think like a lot of people, like at a certain point on that journey, I'm just like, oh, I can play some songs. I think I'll just keep doing that. So you don't progress. You don't learn like some of the various elements of music theory or techniques or things like that.
Yeah.
So I went and I used Quad Artifacts to create my own personal little guitar learning app to do that. And it's quite easy, user friendly.
That's
it's
amazing.
not perfect, but so
Yeah.
that's something that I've been doing more recently, trying to inject some discipline into my life. So if I have to turn to AI because I can't muster it myself, it may be a little bit sad, but I got to go with reality, and that's that's
life. No, that's interesting. I know. So I've always had a bit of an aversion to ChatGPT or Gemini because I like to see the sources. So whenever I put something into Google, I like to then assess all of the options that come in. But I've definitely found it's very useful for in a work environment when I'm doing sort of product development, discovery sessions, particularly looking at LLM. So we're looking at a little bit of LLM analysis and tracking LLM prompts, which is just a whole new world. And the irony is that you end up using an automated platform to track the automated responses. But it is interesting. I've found that I actually am using sort of Gemini as our proprietary one because we're a Google company. I've been using Gemini to then sort of actually pull together the analysis framework that I'm going to be using to then analyze the LLMs. I'm not sure the results are always 100%, but I do find the results are really interesting because I have to kind of talk in the AI language a little bit in order to be able to uncover it. So I think
that's a good. And that's a good point. Is sort of learning the language and how to make it as useful as possible.
Yes,
which does take some time. I mean, that's certainly like the personal and professional experimentation fits into that.
Yeah, and I think recipes is the other area where ChatGPT is quite useful as well. I've had friends say they use ChatGPT to get their color palette for makeup purposes, but that's where data hallucination is really dangerous. What if it tells you that you're the wrong color palette? That's a risk of AI that everyone should be aware of, I think.
Right. People are going to start walking into like houses and environments and being like, oh, AI hallucination.
Yeah, exactly. You should never have worn that color.
Yeah.
So interesting. So obviously it sounds like you're doing a lot in the AI space in your company. How do you think AI is going to transform sort of core activities in the media communication space? I think you've touched on it's obviously transforming some of them. Where do you think it's going to have the most transformational impact on that workflow that you're sort of talking about?
Yeah. Maybe a couple of things.
Great.
On the workflow, it's opening up. For instance, we've been working on like you guys, right? Like some proprietary strategic and measurement products.
Yes.
And when you're trying to reach towards the highest possible value you can provide a client, those products can get pretty comprehensive in a way. Like, if you're doing a strategic product for marketers, you'll need to be able to account for key competitors every time, right? And that that could add thousands of rows of data. So AI has been transformative in terms of helping us look at how can we near fully automate some of these products. It's there's sort of a strategic one we have for marketers, and there's more of a pure measurement focused one we have on the PR or comm side. And that's been really, really interesting because it feels like, and I'm not sure, I might be sliding back into the experimentation question, but that's when I sometimes talk about feeling really hopeful about AI versus uneasy about it 6 months ago. I feel like, they're starting to show a clear path to how this is actually going to happen in our work. The other things when I think about how it's like transforming, if I look at it from, the marketplace standpoint, right? Of course, Gen AI search is drawing a straight line to amplifying the importance of earned media, authoritative sources, and that kind of thing. So I think, that's clearly a very powerful thing for people who are going to, and for companies who are going to use it to empower PR to play a bigger role and to, be more prominent. But, and this might just be me, but, lately I've been thinking, when I look at what that's actually manifesting in regarding some of the things that PR is going to have a correlation to a little more strongly than the past, it's starting to bleed into some marketing type of metrics out there. And being a glass half full, I've been like for 30 years scratching my head about why aren't more companies more integrated, right? But it's always, PR people complain about all the resources marketers have. Marketers complain about all the access to the CEO and C-suite that the PR people have, but getting everybody to actually work together. But if you look at what's happening out in the consumer marketplace about where they're getting their information, where they're, using things, even driving towards purchase decisions, stuff like that, I'm really getting interested in this. Is there potentially a golden age of integration coming into play? So I think, I don't know if that's, I've kind of given up on trying to like project timelines, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year kind of thing. Cause I am, not to sound like a total rube, but I'm just, still pretty flabbergasted by the pace of change.
It's insane. It absolutely is insane. Like exactly that. When I think about 12 months ago, I was terrified of Gemini, and now I'm using it to support product development. So you're right. It is quite insane. And I think you touched on two really interesting points that I've also noticed in particularly in the Australian market as well, because we do have a very kind of niche press or print sector where copyright rules and sort of just our nature of subscriptions mean that it's quite expensive to buy a newspaper. And so as a result of that, readership has dropped. And there is sort of questions around a traditional press release and how long it can sort of last in this environment, especially when you have such a diversification of online news channels as well. And so maybe LLMs can actually sort of revive the traditional press release, because that's where they're going to be getting their indexing from. So that creates an opportunity to create press releases that are going to get picked up by LLMs. But I think the other point you noted, which I've also noticed increasingly, is you're right, the role that marketing and the sort of product review and the consumer market research space is increasingly having in these areas. We've had a client recently, we've engaged with their marketing team because they want to understand how their marketing efforts are being picked up in LLMs. And so for the first time, we're in a meeting with the corporate affairs and the marketing team, and they're both equally as engaged in these insights. And so I think that actually absolutely poses an opportunity for us in this sector. But it also, for me, I just think the LLM space is such a black box of information. And so we need to actually understand that black box while we're also providing insights on that black box. And I think that's going to be a bit of an interesting space to watch over the next little while, the LLM space.
Yeah. And the black box thing is interesting because, the surface, there's elements of it that have felt more transparent, let's say, than in the past about like where search results came from, or things like that. And it feels like, some of these things, they're citing sources and doing that. And so it's allowed people to do it. But you're right. I don't think AI understands how AI works in some ways about like, why it actually, produces things. So, we're actually dealing with obviously a more, powerful potential impact of good and bad, because you're talking about all the context it provides and point of view and guidance. But that's interesting. Okay, this is not related, but I was wondering, what do you think about the different personalities of the LLMs? Like if I think personally, like I talked about like the Claude artifacts, but like I tend to like use Perplexity a lot just for like that personal professional bridge area, because I like that it's not always like, hey, great question, Rob, or that's really smart. But so that part about it, for me is, still makes me a little skeptical about it.
For sure. Well, as part of, we're doing a bit of an LLM pilot at Medianet, which is, it's again, starting small and just trying to understand what's happening in the black box. And all I did is run some prompts in ChatGPT and Gemini a couple times a day, and every time the results came out, they were different. They were only slightly different, so it wasn't so starkly different that it made me feel like I'm right back at square one, but there was a difference. And so I think that for me is the starting point of this investigation, is exactly that, understanding what is driving the different behaviors of the different LLMs. The different kinds of users, because it's very interesting. I didn't even think about that some people actually have preferences. I use Gemini because we have access to a proprietary Gemini that keeps our data confidential. So for me, it's just an easy one to use. But there are professionals who actually choose an LLM that suits their requirements. So that's something that I need to add to our pilot, is understanding why different users are using the different LLMs. It's a really interesting, question.
It's an interesting word to use about them, like behavioral. Like, it's like, what are their behavioral things? But it made me think also, like, even back on that thing about, the era of integration and what it does. Right? Like if you look at it, it's also just what they have access to right now, right? So
exactly,
except for what Brock has access to X, but outside of that, there's not deep access into social. So if there's an evolution of the amount of sources and going to reach into influencers, going to reach into that. That's also an area where I think is going to, spark a greater.
And I think that is a growing space. I know in Australia, we have News Corp's one of our big publishers, and they have a deal with ChatGPT. So you get a lot of News Corp content, but the other publishers don't have a deal with ChatGPT. Right. So that in itself, you're getting a certain frame information in that. But I do think that that's going to change as more and more media and social platforms start to realize the value of being able to provide their content. That is going to create a whole new kind of bargaining around who pays for the content and whether the LLM pays for the content. So that's a whole question that I just can't speak to. But yeah, exactly right. It's really, I think it's going to change.
Yeah, I mean, at this moment for us, it's just like, what's the reality, right? Because if you're a user getting on there and you're, asking ChatGPT something, the user's not thinking like, oh, well, it's just accessing News Corp. So
exactly, they're not like
do it. It's just exactly. So it's like they're just like, okay, I guess this is the reality of what the current state of any issue is.
That's a really good segue. I think we've talked a bit about the warnings and the opportunities. So I'm interested to know what would be your number one AI kind of top tip, learning that you would advise to future experimenters of AI?
Yeah. I'd say that my top tip, is follow the benefits, not the tech. Because I think that's always where you can start to steer in the wrong direction. And maybe because, like, in previous lives, where I worked, probably more with marketers than PR, right? And performance marketing came into being. And then everybody got really excited because we can measure everything. But obviously just because you can, I don't mean to say this on an AMEC call, but just because you can measure something or personalize something or whatever doesn't mean, you should do it. And I feel like there was this journey we went through with clients, where it was like deep dive into that. Let's move as many resources into that. And then this realization that, oh my God, when we add up all the time, energy, resources, we actually abandon a lot of core principles of brand building, business building, that have been neglected over time. So I guess it's sort of a tip and a watch out. I guess
I was going to say a bit of a watch out.
Very
similar to my watch out is, I think if you're going to embark on experimentation, you really need to start with a really scalable, refined kind of concept where there's a very clear objective, there's a very clear output. And if you kind of try and achieve too much with that, then you lose sight of the objectives and the output. I think that's probably my biggest advice to myself, is that you just start getting so excited with all the different data points that are out there, and then I actually just get a bit scrambled. So start with a very small scale, and you can sort of build that out as you scratch the surface a little bit. I think that's really, really good advice.
I've always remembered, like, Steve Jobs always had like a big thing about like the times he chased tech and made a big mistake versus when he became the master of understanding what can I give to people that they're going to love? And it's just a simple thing, but
it's a mindset.
But there is a gravitational pull to the tech part, right? Because, you need to be up to speed on what it can do, how it does it. It's something that maybe too many of us try and like go to clients about, that's the story, but it's not. It's never the story. It's just like, you're trying to get a job done. Is this helping or not helping? That kind of thing. So anyway, that would be, I guess, my bucket.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I think one of my top tips as well, and I think this comes from my leading a team of qualitative analysts who typically manually analyze everything. I still think it's important to keep the human quite central to the process of developing AI. So just making sure that there is that human oversight that just captures the data hallucinations, that just ensures that there's a robust kind of QA process. I'm probably talking more from the perspective of the automating insights end as opposed to an automated workflow. But I just think that you will have so much more chance of success, because if you have humans at the very beginning, then when you're getting to this processing huge volumes of data, you're going to have more accuracy at that end. But that's a little bit of me being obsessed with human analysts. And I think one of the questions I wanted to ask, which is controversial, is in a showdown between AI and human expertise, who would win?
Showdown.
And why?
I think like if it actually becomes a showdown, I might have to bet on AI. I think, but only because of like that idea, like a showdown.
Terminator.
But I just kind of feel like, I think we've talked about this on a personal thing, like, but the evolution of AI versus the regulation of AI, its capability, that part feels like we got into it. But I don't think. I know you're asking, and I don't mean to be, precious about the word showdown. But I believe like if it's just left to AI, then it's AI versus AI for businesses and brands and that kind of thing. And I think that is probably not dissimilar to what I was thinking about, like some performance marketing stuff, which was it was like a road to parity, right? Without the human intervention, then people are going to be using these things in roughly the same way. So the difference is going to be
the race to the average.
Yeah, exactly. It'll just be right, because once things become the same, they are by definition of average, right? It's not like no matter how smart, no matter how great, if everybody is doing that. So I think this, the only way to avoid the race to parity is the human intervention part of this and participation. And I think your point was really, really good one about, thinking about it from the beginning and the end, and like, how it actually structures that. So I would agree with what you were saying on that, because I think ultimately, right, it's like it's people who are like providing the magic that provides the difference between
at the moment
what happens on transforming a brand, on innovating for business, on making life on earth a better place.
Of course. It's interesting. I currently say human expertise, but the robots haven't really taken over yet. I think when we're at the point where we have more robotics in our day-to-day life, then I might start to question things. But no, I do see it's impossible not to embrace AI. I think you're going to miss the boat if you don't embrace it. So we're only going to see more and more of that. But I have heard recently this concept of race to the average. And I think it's interesting you mentioned race to parity, because that's something that we want to avoid as well. And that's where the human comes into it. So thanks for plugging the humans as always. It's still important. It's just been so good to chat, Rob. Honestly, I could talk about this for hours with you, but I'm going to have to let you go back to your day today, because I know it's very early. But I would like to hear one word that you have to describe the, I guess, AI outlook for the year ahead.
I feel like maybe it's about the people. The one word I would have might be separation. I feel like I'm seeing a separation on the standpoint of there's people who are just super committed to AI for efficiency, because there's like some pretty straight lines to how you could do that. But I think the people, there are people who are thinking about maybe how to more efficiently drive value, right? And I think people like keeping their eye on the value proposition that whether it's what we provide for clients, what clients provide for their customers, that's it. But I feel like I feel like when I talk to people about this, there's like two camps, and I think you're better positioned to be thinking, kind of a little higher in the food chain. Like that. So anyway,
I like that. Yeah,
I've been thinking.
Yeah, I think my word is ambiguous. Only, but I think I'm taking into account that while we are seeing AI taking off, we do see a level of skepticism around AI, probably more from the public than we do from the sort of corporate sector. I think with the AI slop that's dominating social media channels these days, and also there's been several kind of job restructures, staff restructures that have been announced in Australia as a result of AI innovation. And I think that there is probably a healthy and an unhealthy level of skepticism amongst the public. And I'm really interested to see how that shapes the development of AI, because as much as AI is going to enhance what we do as a business, we are getting clients who have seen AI and it hasn't delivered sort of value to them. And so they're actually questioning whether they want automated. They're actually sort of questioning, well, do we invest more in bringing the human back into things? So I think it's going to be a little bit of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or vice versa over the next little while. But I'm actually where you are now. I'm sort of excited to see what comes from it. I think I'm in a company that sort of embraces it in a very intentional way, and
Right.
Dataxet seems to have a very similar ethos as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes for the next couple of years for us.
Yeah. No, the ambiguity is a great word, and there's like there's an element of humility in there about we don't know what we don't know.
100%.
With it, and I think the people who succeed are going to be the people who are open to being like, okay, let me like even take that step back could be a really good thing to rethink it and iterate in a more positive way. So
100%. Yeah, it's all about iteration. It's not about solving the problem in the first kind of go. So I think that's a really, really healthy attitude. I'm going to take that on board.
Yeah.
No,
it's good.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Yeah, sure thing.
You've put a bit of energy into my morning, so I really appreciate it.
Okay, good. No, I love the conversation. Thanks so much for
really good chat.
Yeah.
All right, I'll leave you to it, but we'll be in touch.
All right, take care.
Cheers. Bye.